Gentlemen, thank you both so much for being here today. It's a pleasure to meet you. To start off, I should introduce myself. My name is Katrina Dodd. I'm editor-at-large at Contagious. And gentlemen, if you would also introduce yourselves for the audience as well, that would be great.
Good morning. My name is Thiago Stelle. I'm from Brazil, representing Martech Media and lead Martech Media and content in Brazil. Very happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I am Bonin, Bough, Chief Strategy Officer of Group Black. And usually I would yell, "Hey, what's up, Can?" But my voice is a little strained from yesterday, so.
That's the Can voice you've got right there. Several of our team are in the same predicament. Brilliant to see you both here today. We've just seen a really interesting presentation there from Alex of some fun, stimulating, unexpected work from agencies on a really wide range of different topics. So I guess maybe just to kick things off, can you maybe talk a little bit about what it is that you're interested and obsessed by in creativity at the moment? What's really kind of pushing the right buttons for you at the moment? Should we start with you, Thiago?
Sure. Yeah, I think we are obsessed with culture. I think Heinz is a brand that, you know, have more than 150 years, but we need to keep it fresh, actual, you know, tapping into content. We were very focused in Brazil to be doing content, very like an extension of campaigns, where now we have an operation in Brazil called The Kitchen. It's actually a project that we have in many countries. We're installing an in-house there, so we can literally do things like AOS. I think that's a case or a result of having a team that is very prepared, have a lot of strategy intimacy, and are empowered to do things in the speed of culture without, you know, asking much. And I think that's what I'm obsessed with. It's not a brief for a 3 months campaign. It's a daily creation, and I wake up obsessed to create every day in the team, and we are trying to create that operation to bring more culture on that.
It's so interesting though, because it's like a daily practice rather than a sort of a job. You kind of have to be obsessed by it and in it all the time, because if you take a day off from that stuff, you've missed it.
Exactly.
So yeah, really interesting to see that an old timer kind of a brand like Kraft Heinz is making a commitment to that way of working. How about you, Bonin? What's really a focus for you, a fascination at the moment?
Well, I mean, I think you said it. No, I think honey and hot water. No, I think that it's funny because I always talk a lot about how do brands become real time, and it's not about real time. Hey, I can post on Instagram. It's can I actually turn that into something that can deliver throughout the entire organization? So EOS, I hadn't seen that piece of work, but or not even piece of work, that product from culture to actual productization, I think is huge. So I think that is really going to be the key that separates organizations, which is, can I actually move from something that, look, we did the Oreo 3D printing. I don't know how many remember that or saw that, but that was testing ourselves to see if we could actually go from, okay, you see what an Oreo looks like, you see Oreo representing culture, but now you can literally taste culture through the eyes of an Oreo, which led to us then launching our first ever personalized product, which then led to creating an entire lane that would be 50% of the total growth of the largest snack food company. So I think that moving from culture to productization is huge. And then the only other piece I would say, in terms of what keeps me obsessed about creativity, is diverse voices. I think we're in a moment now where we have a lens on diversity, but what we don't realize yet, and what we'll start to see, is how much impact those diverse voices will have on the bottom line. So.
Yeah, and the minute that people start paying attention and understanding that that is what's happening, more momentum will build behind that as well. And so hopefully a virtuous cycle commences that embeds diversity at the heart of creativity as well. Now, I guess one of the things that interests me about what Alex was talking about near the beginning of the presentation around sustainability, you cannot miss the massive theme of purpose and sustainability in a lot of the work that's doing well at Cannes this week. What's your own take on the value of values when it comes to advertising and marketing?
I honestly think we have to be careful now more than ever to understand are our actions really having the impact that we're telling the world that we believe they are?
Yeah.
And I was on a panel during pandemic, or I guess we're still in the pandemic, but in the early days, and somebody came on and they said, hey, you know what? I think we just essential worker washed the entire advertising industry. And I was like, oh my God, we did. Because the moment essential workers were like, oh, thanks, we're being recognized. Hey, can we actually get better health insurance now that we're on the front lines? We're like, whoa, health insurance? You guys got to ad on TV. You don't need health insurance. And so, you know, we have to really, really, really make sure that our actions and our intent are aligned with the commitments that we're making in the marketplace. And that's where I think we're seeing the same thing from diversity and diverse spending. Are we really tracking where we truly are when it comes? Everybody's made commitments to move the needle forward, but have we actually moved the needle forward? And the most amazing thing, though, I believe, is that of all the industries in the world, this industry has the ability to actually change the way society views society and change the way the world operates. And so I just hope that we hold ourselves up to a much higher lens than just, you know, than just
Words
impact for impacts. Exactly.
Yeah. I guess the important thing so often seems to be just that idea of beginning with the action rather than the pledge.
And I think another thing is not, you know, having this as an innovation, but as an obligation.
Yeah.
And we as a brand marketeers to know that we have a voice. We're not celebrities, Kim Kardashians, but we have a voice with our brands, and we have the responsibility, and we can make change with that. So that's where I don't like to see work on things that we should. I mean, I saw a title of a talk here, like equity in the metaverse. I mean, let's discuss equity.
Yeah.
You know, let's don't romanticize and make it sexy, cool things that, you know, we need to take as an obligation.
Yeah, an absolute fundamental. I guess another issue that, you know, equally none of us should be trying to avoid right now is the problems that we're having with sustainability and the absolutely intrinsic nature of that problem to the industry that we all work in. You know, we all contribute to the perilous position that we find the planet in at the moment. But as Alex was saying in his presentation, I think quite often we find ourselves in a position where the messaging and the communications around sustainability issues is not very well branded. It's like people are leading with the platitude-like messages and the broad statements rather than thinking from a brand-first perspective. Is it just me that notices that? Is some of the communication kind of boring and therefore not effective? What's your take on that?
Well, I think it goes with what I was saying. Maybe if you're feeling like that, maybe because you don't really feel it's like because they show it, they prove, they are just saying it. I think it's a bit about that. I see a lot of communication on, you know, we are doing this or that, but maybe you were not impacted by something that is, you know, beyond the communication.
Yeah.
And that's where they are probably failing.
And Bonin, in terms of sort of I'm not sure if you direct experience of working on sustainability related marketing, is it something that creative people find difficult to work on because the issue is quite nuanced and complex and it necessarily involves a lot of supply chain stuff, operation stuff as well? Or what's
I mean, that's the piece, right? So I actually think that it's really sexy if you are seeing real outcomes. So, I mean, you know, look, when I was on the journey with PepsiCo, we were focused on performance with purpose, and sustainability was a real thing for us. In fact, the crinkly plastic bottles that you have now, that's a result of the work that PepsiCo did to change the way that they actually deliver water to the store. But part of that was looking at the entire supply chain, understanding we used to ship fully formed plastic bottles. So instead, they figured out how to ship them collapsed, blow them up at the space. We used to move water around instead of doing that. We used to use water to clean the bottles. Then we'd use a dry format. When we changed into that in India, for example, we turned India from a water negative country to a water positive country. So when you have real outcomes and you're actually doing the work, I think that creative people can wrap their heads around that and tell that story because it's something they can be proud of. But I think that's the piece, is to align those two things. But the thing that I think that creatives can do even more is that they can continue to help. I love when you're telling people what you're going to do, but I think they can continue to come back to that same theme and say, have we done it or not, and ask the organization. So but I think at the end of the day, it's like, what are the true outcomes, and are those big enough and interesting enough for us to get behind it creatively?
Yeah, a much better starting point, I think. Thinking more generally, I guess, guys, what do you see as the most important changes in how brands are approaching media and the challenge of reaching their audiences effectively? We saw some brilliant examples just now. The Samsung eye test just gives me so much joy. The EOS example as well. Just a devastatingly sharp, on-point way of speaking directly to a very specific, engaged, excitable audience. What's your take on sort of the challenges around that right now?
Yeah, for me, media-wise, I think we have a challenge. We, to understand that we don't have more like a linear funnel. People are getting impacted by random things all the time. So embracing or hugging like the journey of consumer have been much more complex. So that's a challenge on journey for me. The other is a bit what Alex said. How can we get to guarantee that frequency, of story along the year to start getting results? How can I to have a creative idea and tell that idea in different ways and still guarantee I'm being effective through media? The third thing that we are applying in Heinz now is guaranteeing we have the great balance between paid, owned, and earned media as well, which for most of brands, maybe for Kane, it's not very new, but for us have made us collect very good results in balancing and putting more. If we have a campaign that will get more earned media, probably it's going to perform better when I'm doing paid media as well. So that's, I think, where I'm sitting.
It's interesting to hear you talk about that, though, because the inevitable feature of almost every successful case study video we see is extraordinary earned media results, and we didn't spend anything on media, no paid media, as a sort of badge of honor. Is that something that annoys you when you see it?
No, I think as a brand, we love it, right? But we always say that earned media is not necessarily free, because our CFO thinks we're going to, okay, but then earn it. I love earned media because it's free.
Yeah, I think it's the zero paid media part is the part that tends to get people's back up a little bit.
Exactly, but I think it's the balance on we're going to think about campaigns that are earned first. Let's see if that story is good enough for people to actually talk about it without me paying, and then I'm going to put media behind it. That's how we're thinking. Yeah.
I mean, that's the bottom line, is that can I create something that's so good that you want to tell somebody about it? And then I think the other side of the coin is, look, I would suggest that we are still in a very nascent stage of really rethinking media. I mean, I love that. The two, first of all, Alex said something to me when we were sitting down prepping for this, which I thought was interesting. He said, we pivoted away from performance where we were before to creativity. I feel like performance was a format of trying to be creative in a world where you needed a new model. But your real message is that creativity is the only lever that transforms the growth of organizations. I saw many years ago a person said, this is going to be the most some of the folks in here know who I'm talking about. This is going to be the most boring presentation around creativity that you ever seen in your life. And he said, what he did was, and he reminds everybody, he's like, I don't want to win awards. I want to sell products. So what he did was he went through and he said, everybody who won awards in their category versus those that didn't. And guess what? Two things. One, they grew faster, but two, people were willing to pay more money for it. The price was elastic, much more elastic. Creativity is the only lever that makes it happen. But when we think about where we are still in a media landscape today, I would argue, that campaign is great with Samsung. Yeah. How much money did they really spend on it? Zero. I would argue that it's probably very tiny, but that campaign could actually change the complexion of the sales of Samsung, I believe, if they actually went behind it. So we're still in a world where we believe product, benefit, hammer them with this, buy, sale. I mean, look at car ads. car ads haven't changed in forever. It's like, really? I know how to drive around a bendy, windy road. Like, I'm good on that one. Like, you know what I mean? So we're still in a world where I think media is nascent and we haven't really become comfortable investing behind really true, innovative, creative concepts in a big scaled way. And that's why we still don't see explosive growth. Like EOS, I mean, that's a big investment, dude.
Yeah.
And I love EOS in just complimenting you because it starts, it's a cultural idea, earn it first, from a probably very prepared team that is like social listening, activated, etc. But I think that's another movement in media because we normally prepare ads and prepare communication for standard formats.
Yeah.
And then, TikTok and other partners are pushing us in Brazil, like, when are you going to come, with these visual codes, with this kind of material? Because otherwise people are going to scroll and think it's an ad. Stop spending much of production. I didn't see any production in there instead of the boxes that they send and probably some pictures of the photo, but there is no film, there's no craft. It's like, quick and people are prepared for it. And probably when they are scrolling, probably are going to get more attention to that rather than a very well done ad.
I feel like we should talk about a campaign that has done extremely well for you guys at Kraft Heinz in the last year. And this is the Heinz Hidden Spots campaign that you created eventually in collaboration with Call of Duty.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of the epitome of another very sort of responsive idea to an opportunity that you identified and then went for. Can you tell us how that came about?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that are very important when it comes to content is that we used to create content for people, for audiences.
All right.
And now, is that me? We used to create content for audiences, and now we need to create content with the audiences. It's the change. We're not targeting, people like, this is for these people. Let's build with them. Let's not prepare in a room closet with people that are not from the target a campaign that will be brilliant in 1 month and think it will be brilliant and it will fail. So Hidden Spots is a case that we invited gamers to find spots in the games where they could hide and stop to eat. Generally, professional players don't stop to eat because they are always playing, etc.
Yeah,
but
if you stop, you get killed, right?
you get killed, etc. But in the gaming world, or when you are watching a live in Twitch, you want entertainment. These people, this community, they are waiting for new things to happen, like a concert, a promotion, something that will happen. So with Hidden Spots, we were kind of building that entertainment for that one day, where professional players were actually stopping and fighting in spots, which was very fun. This is a case for me on, creating a content. Hidden Spots was like an invitation in one day. We're gonna, during this weekend, map spots. And it was built along the 2 following weeks.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be only in Latin America, but then Call of Duty called us and said, we need to do this. Fernando Machado, actually, he was like, we need to do it. And then it went global in 10 days in 12 countries. Success.
Extraordinary. And just the power of the idea and the simplicity of it, I guess, traveled so beautifully. It was just so relevant and replicable everywhere, I guess.
Yeah, and one thing that you were saying, if we see the assets on Hidden Spots, there's no RTB. There is some products, we sent some products so people could eat with ketchup, Heinz. But, it was all about the fun.
Yeah.
People that were watching, and I watched myself because, I needed to monitor. I was having lots of laughs of people like hiding, and then people were fighting them. So, that's, you cannot, you get confused if it's advertising or not, right? That's
well, no, I also think it comes from an insight, right? Like they need this space. I think the other thing that Fernando did, which was genius, was and there's a lot of great work across the board, but I don't even remember what it's called, but there was the lowest ranking soccer team in, you probably know better. All right, go.
The Stevenage Challenge.
Stevenage.
Yeah.
It's a case.
Right. Go ahead. You know it?
I know.
Yeah. So anyway, they took the lowest ranking soccer team that nobody would sponsor, and they sponsored the jersey. And in the games, you can pull whatever player you want and put them on that team. So they sponsor the jersey. They have to put down the visual in the official game. Yeah. And so now people were taking, the biggest soccer stars in the world and putting them in this jersey that had Burger King all over it from the smallest team. It was genius, you know. I mean, and so, but I think it comes from an insight, which is nobody's going to sponsor the lowest team. So, but I think that those are the kind of creative concepting that we still don't see a lot of. There's a few people, and I also think more than anything, like what I love about what Fernando did, and what I talk about a lot is you have to create a cultural mindset that allows for that to happen. And look at what he just did. He spawned another person who's now doing that. No, but I'm saying that's what happens. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
You create, you know, and so we're still in a struggle, I think, in many organizations where the culture, and everybody wants a change agent, but what they don't realize is there's not one person who's going to pull a rabbit out of the hat and transform your culture. If you think about like Google, every single person in that organization believes that they can be a change agent. And that's what you have to create, a mindset that every single person feels empowered and has a belief system. They believe that they can do something that's, you know, future. Go ahead.
No, exactly. It's just in when you say that, how in practice, how in real life you create that, you know, we stopped, for many years, we stopped to have like this agency relationship, right? To have like really, literally them as an extension of the table. We don't write a full brief and send them and you get the material. We write the brief 80% and then the rest of 20% we close with them. What do you think, etc. So that collaboration is key to actually get that kind of results. Yeah. But for content, for cultural content, this internal operation is helping us a lot. And what is that internal operation when we talk about, you know, pandemic? When do you have an in-house, but everybody's working from home? Like where you're trying to build an in-house, but in-house, what we want behind that? We want strategy, intimacy, speed, results, like quick results, right? With that, we created some sort of rituals that are very important for this. It's not a social media work, because if you go there, you're gonna plan for a social media, you know, plan for the month, planned content that is gonna be old, that nobody's gonna engage. Normally when you have the biggest campaigns here, and then you have always on social media, and then we're playing everything to be, you know, calm and we know we're gonna get something. Those contents that we have as a backup there, like if we don't have anything, that's what we're gonna post, gets like very, you know, mediocre results. When we have something that is happening today and we post, I don't know, Anitta, which is our most famous Brazilian singer, was playing for the first time at Coachella, and we were supporting her, you know, engaging fandoms. That went, you know, for 3,000 shares on Twitter, which is in some days we get 2 shares. You know, the difference of, so that's the operation we are building. And in that operation, what's very important, we don't want to be, you know, be producing like a fabric of content of posts on Instagram. We want to have their agendas literally with spaces for them to create. There is an agenda, call it coffee meeting, not very creative, the name, but is an agenda that has, you know, we cannot talk about budget, tasks, follow-ups, projects, production. We cannot talk. It's prohibited. It's protected. Protected. And people need to come just to talk about what's going on Twitter, what they saw on TV, the new Netflix launch, etc. We talk about that, and if we see an opportunity, we do it the same day. And that agenda in the beginning was constantly, we have the project, the urgence campaign that needs to be on air, TV, etc. Let's cancel this one. No. And that took time to build culture, because if we don't have time to be creative, there's nothing to be productive on.
Right.
Final question, I think, guys, because we're running to the edge of time now. There's so many interesting opportunities coming up in terms of the influence of technology. So we're seeing a lot of AI, machine learning driven opportunities coming up. The metaverse is a huge topic of conversation. Gaming is the new social. There are so many different types of opportunities right now. What do you see as the biggest opportunities, but also challenges in working successfully in that melee of different potential ideas?
You know, it's interesting because I think that, so definitely metaverse. I think for me, what's more interesting is to see how have we come to a point where we have been able to, even with inside of those platforms, I think technology we're now seeing technology has an inherent, it's carried over a lot of social biases. And I think that those social biases are so raw in technology that it's actually showing to us the reality of how far we still have to go. And I usually don't talk about these concepts, but last Mobile World Congress that happened, it was the first time that they had facial recognition for the ticketing, so you could just walk through. So I signed up, or I was on my way there, and I'm signing up, and it's like, take a photo. So I happen to have on a black shirt. See, you know where I'm going. Take a photo. It's like, sorry, you can't submit black and white. I'm like, mother. So I gotta like stick my head out the window and look, but it's just an inherent bias. And so we just need to keep thoughts of those. And then when you look at metaverse, I don't know if some of you guys have seen this. Now, I mean, clearly you've seen the metaverse, but I mean, there was a thing that was done called Meta Slave, where they basically put African Americans up for sale. I mean, and then there was a whole one on women too. And because it's, you couldn't try. And so those things are making its way through. We're working on a project right now so I love the text to photo. It's genius. There's a lot of the ones that you can literally feed it the workings and the writings of people and then have a conversation with it. There's actually a great This American Life on it. And where the woman feeds it writings from her sister, and then her sister happened to pass away, and then has a conversation with her sister. Yeah. It's very beautiful. It's a very beautiful piece. But we're now working on a project where we're feeding it from different types of people and seeing what the biases were from the different times of age of when they change and grow. So I just think that technology still is carrying with it some of the challenges that we as society has. And we have to be kind of cognizant of those and try to figure out how we unravel some of those from technology, because technology, just like media, now shapes who we are.
Absolutely. And we can't afford to find ourselves in a position where we're feeding our new technologies with old data that's going to replicate and emphasize the problems we've been trying to deal with in the last couple of decades, I guess.
Or try to do the same thing.
Huge challenge. Something that I think we see Google doing some interesting work to try and create a more equitable situation. So with the real tone camera, for example, the campaign for Black-owned businesses, where they're changing the infrastructure of search in order to try and create a more level playing field for Black-owned businesses. But you have to be intentional about doing that and think about it from the beginning. Otherwise, the opportunity has gone. But you're not here to hear from me, Thiago.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think he said it all. Let's discuss, as I said, equity in the metaverse. Let's discuss equity. Those things are gonna probably be impacted as well. But we have so much. It's like, I come from a country that, it's under development. Brazil has 30 million people still in situation of food starvation, for example. Let's solve this first before we do so. I think we need to be careful. I love Kane. I love the content. I love the trends that are coming up. I think makes us uncomfortable, but we need to understand if we're doing that for ourselves or if we're really changing, making something good for the consumer, if we're changing a life, if we're changing a community. That's the most, the biggest challenge for me as a marketeer, because getting a lion that it was done in a zoo, and there's a lot, and sorry if I'm, there are lions that are sexy. It's advertising. It's good. It's smart. It uses a lot of technology. But getting a lion that, it's changing culture, community, entertaining, making people happy, I think it's going to make us, much happier.
So priorities, I guess. Listen, folks, I'm going to wrap it there. It's been an absolute pleasure to get some time to talk to you today. Bonin, Bough, Thiago, Stelle, thank you so much for being with us today, and enjoy the rest of your festival.
Thank you.
Thank you.